Your Daily Game Face with Dr. Kim Lannon. I am Dr. Kim Lannon. I am late this morning because I was doing something very important. I was asked recently in a very odd way, how is it that I can work so many hours and ever have time for emergencies? And you know what my answer is? You make time for them. And why am I late this morning? Is because I had to prioritize an emergency over this.
Yes.
And that's what happens. That's why I function the way I do, because I can get things done because that's what I do.
You prioritize something over me? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I didn't say that, but I did prioritize over my stuff and other things that are non-emergent for an emergency.
That's what an emergency is,
that's
right?
what you do,
Yeah.
right? So, but it just found it was an odd question for, like, you work 70 plus hours a week. How do you find time for an emergency? Like, what you do? Like it's life. I mean, you do, So
that's the definition of an emergency.
Well, I was thinking back about the fact that, and by the way, welcome to July, and I'm going to talk about, the year of you and July of you and so on. But I was just thinking, because I just came off of this call with this thing that happened, but you've known me for a long time now. How I have emergencies all the time, and you see me jog around them all the time to figure out how to do stuff. I mean, you see me, I'm like seamless. I would imagine that's how you would describe me, maybe.
You do fine. Yeah.
But it's like life, I had it. And so I was thinking about my very first two supervisors that I trained with a long time ago, 30 years ago. And both of them men. And I say this for a very specific reason.
Okay.
I do. Both of them men.
Sounded pejorative, but
no,
okay.
No, in a good way. This is in a good way. Both of them, it will be pejorative in one way, but it will come at the end. But they were both men, and one of them, God rest his soul, he's passed. But they both trained me in the fact that they were both, I worked at a hospital, a very famous hospital.
There you go.
And there were no 40-hour weeks. No. It was 70, 80 hours at the clinic. And then afterwards, you were still on call. You were still doing, you were writing, you were teaching. Like, there was no 40-hour week. So my training, and that's also doing this career, has always been, there's no 40 hours. Like, I don't know 40 hours, so that's not a thing. Like, 40 hours for me is half a day kind of thing. It's like, that's not, my whole day is, people's whole day, can be 9 to 5. And I started 5:30, 6 o'clock, so in terms of that, my training in life prior in like gymnastics was, you get up at 4:30, you train till 8, you go to school, you come back at noon, you're in the gym again, you train, so I had that prior to 18 with a career. Then I go into my career, and for 30 years, 40 hours is nothing. 70 hours is like nothing. So when you have an emergency like I just had, or you have something come up, it's just like in life. If you're in your day and you have a normal 40-hour work week and you have an emergency, you find time. Like, you just move stuff.
What's a 40-hour work week? But
right. Right. But that's what I'm saying. So so I just have to laugh, not haha, like funny in someone's face, but laugh about the fact that it's not even a thought that when something's in the way of an emergency, you just move it. There's that's just how it works. I mean, that's how life works. I mean,
well, there are two different types of people, and there are people who punch in and punch out.
Right.
And their job isn't part of who they are. And, they're just, when they're done, they're done. They hit the clock, hit the parking lot, and they're gone. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we don't live that way.
Well, I can't, since I don't live that way, but I choose not to live that way as well. But I also, my job isn't that. So, and I think that I think a lot of people are like me. I know a lot of my colleagues are like this. A lot of my friends are like this. I shouldn't say a lot of my colleagues. Very particular colleagues that I tend to gravitate towards are much more like that. And then there's a lot of my colleagues that are not. They're the punch in, punch out, and they're off and they don't have any commitments, That's not how I am. And so I think that speaks to a certain type of dedication to like your craft and something that you love, but also the fact that you put, I have a thing about moral code and ethical code. You have a moral and ethical code to like live up to. You live up to it, right? You don't let it down, and you don't let people down, and you're not perfect, but that's what it is. But I just, to put out the fact that these two people were men, I said that were my supervisors because I was thinking about the fact and talking with someone over the weekend about, I wonder if anyone would ask a man that same question.
Oh,
and if they would have asked my two supervisors the same question, knowing that, like, I had this one psychiatrist supervisor who, like, he was such a great mentor, and he would just be like, Kim, what do you mean I'm not going home to like rest, and I have like still work to do, and I have client follow-ups to do, and I'm like writing this blah 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 chapter. That was like my model. That's why I write, and that's why I teach. Like that's, but I'm wondering if that question would be posed to a man. So that's why I was bringing it up, because I can't imagine them being questioned, oh, you work 70 hours a week. How do you find time for emergencies? And they were on call like I am all the time. That's what they did. So I just say that as a matter of course.
The only thing I would think they would be, but the only thing that
you think that they would be asked?
Yeah, but the only reason I think people would hesitate or might ask women when they ask men is because there's the whole maternal and motherhood role.
Again, that was to my point. It's this
addition to the jobs, which men don't experience quite the same way.
Well, I mean, I guess it could be that, but I still think it's sexist.
Well,
I think that there's a sexist nature in that question.
Yeah.
Because I don't think most men would be asked that question. How come you work so much, and how do you manage having taken care of? Yeah. It's like saying, how do you work so much and be able to take care of your kids? You do, unless I mean, certainly people do it and they don't do it well, but come on, So it made me think this morning, because I was running late, and I wasn't running late. I was sitting in the parking lot on this call that was an emergency, and it just struck that chord in me of being like, interesting. And I think that my supervisors would be very proud of me, because they were not sexist. They would be like, yeah, you go, girl, you do exactly what you're doing, because that's exactly how we trained you. So yeah. Damn it. But I just found it interesting this morning to me, because this was going on, and here I was doing exactly what you've seen me do before. Like, I put aside non-emergent things that are not in the space that didn't take precedence.
It's part of your job description.
Right. Yeah. And the person on the other side of the phone was like, thank you so much for taking time. I know that you had other things. I'm like, no, it's all right, because it's my job.
Yep.
Anyway, so.
By the way, to do amateur psychology here.
Oh.
Why do you give a flying F what about the person who asked that question and their opinion of things?
Well, you know the answer.
Just keep walking.
You know the answer to that.
Yeah.
You actually know the answer to that.
I do.
But in normal cases, I would say absolutely. But in that particular case, it burned my ass a little bit, because I was like, seriously, would you be asking this to anybody else? But I had to be.
Yep.
I had to be like, thinking in a different way.
Yeah.
So, but it, anybody else that would be like, well, this is how I do my job. But I mean, that's still my answer to that. To the person who asked me, it was, well, I just do. Emergencies come up and I just move things just like I do.
Part of the job.
Right. I mean, I don't have any other answer. Like, well, I don't know. If you get an emergency in your middle of like Timbuktu doing something and you have to get to it, what do? You figure out how to do it. I don't know. It just seems like an odd question to me, but nonetheless, I had to ruminate about it, and then
seemed kind of targeted.
You think?
Yeah.
You think a little targeted?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I brought up the male-female thing. Just saying.
Yeah.
I find it to be non-relevant to life. That I do my job really well.
I'm constantly bugged by how oblivious people are to that when, you're dealing with people, and we deal with multiple clients, right?
Yes.
And every client thinks they're the only person in your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And what an interesting concept that is, because I mean, I certainly have many clients that do not think that at all, but I have had encountered over the years, certainly many other clients who absolutely think they are the only one.
Yeah.
And then I have, people who absolutely think they're the only one. And then,
Yep.
Yes. But, and
that's aggravating.
Yes. Especially when you say you're going on vacation, or that you're not around or something like that. And they're like, how dare you? Like, what?
Yeah, I know.
Like, wait a second, I have vacation time, But
that's the people who don't think you're human.
Well,
yes. There's a whole nother class of people.
Well, that's also the thing. Like, that's like a childhood thing of like, there's an actual developmental theory that I go into, which I won't, but there's the whole thing of like kids having like that object permanence thing of, you see your teacher outside of school and you don't understand that they don't live at school kind of thing. Yeah. And so when you see them out, it's out of context and you can't figure out like, oh, wait, you go to the grocery store or you go to the, it's that concept. But people in adulthood still do that. So it means that they have not gone through that stage back when they were 2 to 6.
I just think you sit in the office 24/7.
Yeah, pretty much.
Shut down the lights and sit there until the next client.
Until the next, exactly. And it's funny because I'll have kids be like, oh, where's your bed and where's your, refrigerator? Because they think that, oh yeah, I've had kids say that to me over the years. And I laugh. I say, well, I don't live here. And they're like, wow. Funny. So it's very, very funny. But typically I don't have adults say that, but I think some adults actually think that in their head.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there we are. That was the opener. So the encore of last week, I wasn't here last week.
Yes.
On an impromptu day off.
First one.
I know.
Yeah.
Could you believe I did that?
No.
Were you shocked?
I was kind of shocked.
I know. And I did it last minute. I know. I needed to.
That's fine.
I know it was fine.
Yeah.
So, but people were actually like, you didn't have a show, but you had an encore presentation. And I'm like, yes, I did. I don't remember what you put up, but hey, that's good.
It now myself.
So anyway, so here we are. It's July.
I know it's hot.
It's hot, and it went from raining hell to now it's hot and thunderstormy and hot. And here we are. But in the year of you, in the year of July, in the month of July, in the month of you, I wanted to bring it back to the fact of talking about you, not you, but you, my listeners, right? Yeah. And talking about reinforcing your ability to consciously choose what energies you engage with. Hello, Renee.
Exactly my point on your.
That explains why you
time for emergencies.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Renee,
engage with that.
Renee apparently must have spoken to me through my show last week, and I didn't respond back because I wasn't there. So now she's laughing. Sorry, Renee. Yeah. Well, I am here today. And so there we go. So what I was saying is, reinforcing your ability in July to consciously choose what energies that you engage with by reclaiming your power to define your boundaries, your truth, and your state of energy, regardless of any external circumstances.
Get stingy.
How's that for July?
Yep, I love it.
All right, I'm going to repeat that because I actually wrote it for myself.
In my last 5 years.
So
mastering this.
So your month of July is reinforcing your ability to consciously, so with intention, to choose what energies you will engage with, and reclaiming your power to define your boundaries, your truth, and your energetic state, regardless of any external circumstances. Say that again 5 times.
Yeah.
But it's basically about, stay away from negative crap and don't engage with it.
That's right.
Right? I mean, as much as you can, and set your boundaries of sort of my opening story is about being able to set my own internal boundary, finding my own power and truth, because I know what my truth is, and being able to sit with that and being like you said, who cares? Right? Sometimes you have to care, but really, who cares at the end of the day? By the way, I have Rocky here and he's sneezing. Rocky, the little bugger, he's sneezing. Hi, Rocky. Hi. He's looking at me. But I think that when you have like an authentic sovereignty to that practice of doing what I just said, those times, that you are able to sort of like ground yourself into the root of the earth, or the root of your belief system, or the root of yourself, of who you want to be and how you want to be. And that makes it easier, but that doesn't mean that you don't have waves of anxiety and, up and down. But it means that if you can keep coming back to reinforcing your ability to disengage from the negative stuff, it helps.
Well, that's an important point.
But it's so hard. And people, but it's hard. Yep, it is very hard.
An important point about all these practices is they're non-linear.
Right.
You're going to slip at times, things that shouldn't bother you or that you could just walk past at times are going to get to you. And that's fine.
Right.
Just clean it up next time.
Well, and sometimes, and that's the thing, is people think it's supposed to be like, you're supposed to be able to hold that space all the time. This could be like daily, like 25 times during the day, up, down, up, down, up, down. And it's really about practicing that intentional, like conscious pull together of being able to like firmly plant yourself in like, okay, I know today this is what it is. And that doesn't mean your mind's you're not gonna have your mind run, because mine does, and then I have to bring it back and do the same thing and declare to myself, like, okay, this is my day, this is my sacred space, this is, I'm in my authority, my sole authority of me and who I am and what I want and what I'm doing, and being able to do that and hold that. And it's hard sometimes, especially if there's a lot of stress or there's some kind of circumstance going on, but being able to sit with the energies that are coming from creating like your own power and authority over your own life, so that you don't have the external energies being like sucking the soul out of you.
Social media.
And the social media, you're so funny.
It's the worst. If you stayed the worst thing in the society.
Do you know that if you stayed off social media, you wouldn't have that problem?
Or you could learn to deal with it and still keep social media.
Are you learning to deal with it?
Yes.
I'm feeling like you're struggling with this.
No, I've been still. If you did know me 5 years ago.
I did. I was going to say, if you knew me, yes, I did know you.
You've seen the difference. Just let things go. You don't have to comment on everything. You don't have to confront everything.
Why are you even? Okay, so yes, but why do you even engage? Even in, like, if don't scroll. Don't scroll.
Well, you can't avoid it all the time.
Well, yes,
I've changed my algorithms, but you can't avoid it all the time.
You did change your algorithms?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm impressed. That's impressive. I didn't think you would do that.
Yeah.
Wow. What?
I'm good at it.
To what?
Oh, I know. I do cat videos. And
cat videos. Are they political?
Sports no, I try to avoid that stuff.
Oh, that's good. My ears are itching.
But I'm very good at getting to the point that's just idiotic and just keep scrolling.
Oh, well, that's
Don't have to engage in everything.
I love that.
Yeah.
However, just speaking of social media, because I did miss talking about this, and people are like, what the hell? You didn't say anything. Karen Reed is free.
Yeah.
So I don't even remember if I did talk about it, but people said I didn't. So Karen Reed is free.
I don't think we had a show after
I think that, yeah. But yay! Sorry.
I know, but they're going to get away with it.
Oh, yeah, the corruption people? Yeah. Yes, they are.
And then they went out and they just went on TV and just
yapped their brains.
Danced and
that was painful. That was painful to watch.
Yep.
It was painful for so many reasons to watch. But okay, so
then there's going to be the civil trial, which is going to be.
I know, but I don't think that's going to go very far. I think it's going to be one of those weird things that happens that doesn't really go in the favor of, unfortunately, John O'Keefe's family. Because I think this was such a debacle.
And hopefully they don't spend a lot of money pursuing this civil trial.
But they're going to.
Yeah.
Because they feel, I get it. I understand. But anyway, okay. Yep. Come back to July of you. Okay. So I'm going to revisit the whole coming back to your intentional, conscious, staying away from negative and all those things. But let's talk about how the summer affects your mental health.
Okay.
Now, specifically, so our summer, unlike people in the South, our summer is only like 3 months long.
If that,
right?
Yeah.
So I always think of it like for months, we all stay in a state of survival from basically like end of September until June.
Yep.
We stay in survival mode. People up in the Northeast, Northwest, or in the cold, mid, I was gonna say mid-Atlantic, but sort of mid-Atlantic, but also Midwest, right? We're all in these like cold, in Canada, all these, cold places, but we're in survival mode. And so that's actually, and people don't realize it, I don't think, but that's an actual type of stress on you.
I believe it.
And in psychology, I mean, obviously we name it, seasonal affective disorder, if it gets really bad for people, if they're really anxious and depressed. But that type of long-term stress and exposure to cold and kind of dreary or dark weather, can you imagine living in Ireland and London, takes a toll on your overall well-being, and it leaves you like physically and mentally and emotionally exhausted. And so when you come into the summer, all of a sudden you have this short period of time where it evenly distributes like some wonderfulness on you. And it's hard for people to shift over into that aspect of it. And so in July, you finally return to really warm weather up here. Now, for people down south, I always think of all my Florida friends, they go from warm to deathly hot,
brutal,
and they never leave the air conditioning because it gets so hot. But finally, when we return to that warm weather, it's, if you're up in these areas of the country, it's so important for you to get the benefits of that, because in order for you to live physically, emotionally, and mentally well, there is a benefit to having summer weather. And that's why a lot of people snowbird and move during the winter to south, to the south, because they want to get that. So I was reading, there was a recent study, I think it's sort of recent, from the University of Michigan, and they were stating that the positive impact of warm, sunny weather is that being outside in pleasant weather offers a way to reset your mindset. And we know that, like, there's research done on nature therapy, the benefits of doing 20 or 30 minutes outside, like in the woods, walking on a trail, getting out of like the stimulus areas that you have. That's why it's important to like get up and get out of your house and not sitting in your house all day. I mean, I'm watching certain people this summer not doing a lot of working and getting ready to go to college, and they're just sitting home gaming and doing nothing else. And that's driving me nutty. Not in my house, but
yeah.
But there's that just creates. I mean, people will often come to me and be like, I don't feel well. They've gained 20 pounds. They don't leave the house often. They're not feeling good physically. All these things. I'm like, well, how much activity are you doing? How much sunlight are you getting? And they're like, none.
Yeah.
I'm like, well. Well, there's a problem. So let's talk about the sunlight in terms of mental health, right? So the sun provides you with vitamin D, and vitamin D is essential for regulating very specific things in your body: calcium and phosphorus. And it helps with the absorption of calcium and phosphorus. And we don't have that in the winter. And you get the blood work up here and everyone's always depleted, right? And so the maintenance of healthy bone structure and your teeth and the supply of protective antibodies for like diseases and any kind of conditions, like the summer helps that. That does not mean you have to go out and sit in the sun like I do, which I love the sun. But it's more about, being able to make sure that you get 20 or 30 minutes of exposure to sun every day. Now, whether you go out and walk around in it, whether or not you go and sit in it, and I have clients that will say, well, I sat in my window, like, and read a book and the sun was coming in. Does that count? I guess it's more than not, but it's still not what I would say. Let's do that. Like, it's better to get up and get out and be out in it. And
does it have to be direct sunlight?
Well, you don't have to be standing in the blazing hot. No.
No, okay.
No, but it's
sitting in the shade on the deck.
Yeah, just being out in that space in the air. I mean, the airflow changes, the barometric pressure changes. Everything is much different, and you're getting exposure from outside air to inside air, and vice versa. That's a very, very different thing. Plus, when you go outside, even though you're in the shade, you're still getting sunlight, and you're getting the effects of the radiation from the sun.
Yeah.
So, and that's important, right?
Yep.
But people don't realize how important the vitamin D is for their calcium and their phosphorus and their bone structure.
They don't realize it till it gets dark at 4:00, and then they figure out how important it is.
Well, yeah, but even then, I don't think that they realize how important it is to the actual physical body. I think it's more about like how they feel, like, oh, it's so dark and that's so sad. And I think that affects
comes
people
from
more.
The physical body.
But it does come. But I think that people do separate that out, right? So, anyway, and then in the summer, hopefully, right, these, especially in July, even though it's hot, I encourage all my clients that because July is hot, August is hot, I want people to be more active. But if you're going to be active in terms of like exercise and things like that, you've got to do it early, because if you're up at 6 or 7 and you can get out there and do 20 or 30 minutes, then you're at 80 degrees versus 100 or 90 or 70 degrees instead of 80 or 90. And not to be exercising per se on really hot days like we had last week, those 300, almost 100-degree days. You between 10 and 3 in the afternoon, you can't. I saw people out running. I used to do that. Too. I used to do that. I can't do that anymore. I could, but I'd probably die.
Yeah.
At a golf tournament, and on one of those days last week, and on Monday, I was dying. It was 100 degrees that day.
Yeah.
And it was a very long golf tournament, and it started bright and early at 7:30 in the morning. And I think by 9:30, we were long from finishing. And everyone was dying.
Golf courses are so humid because
they
do the early watering.
Right. And then, it was long. And we had to be off the course by 1 because there was another tournament coming on. And I won the 20-foot putt. So I got to go to the next round, and we were waiting on it in the blazing sun. We were waiting for other people to come in to be able to do the final round of it. By the way, I got the closest to the 25-foot putt.
Oh, wow.
And I thought I was the only woman, but there were 2 women, and there were like 20 men. And I missed it by the 25-foot. It was for $10,000. I missed it by. But I did win the closest to it, and it was lovely.
Nice.
Yes, but it was in the blazing sun.
$25,000 to sink a 25-foot putt?
No, $10,000 to sink.
Still.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. If you also got a hole in one on one of the holes, you could win a truck. The truck was sitting there. I didn't get close. I went off the green. I overshot towards the truck.
You manned up?
Yeah, I was like way over. Whoopsies, a little too much club on that one. So anyway, the heat and the level of you have to be careful of, because obviously you can overheat your body, which was happening to me, right, and make you not feel so good. But the actual getting outside and being in it and doing some exercise is important, because you get more bang for your buck in the summer months with the exercise, because you're more likely to go further, longer, because it feels good. But it will not feel good at those higher degree days. So you either have to wait till it's evening time and it's cooler and the sun's not beating on you, which you still get the benefit of the sunlight because it's lighter, longer. And then you also get the benefit if you go early in the morning, because it's, lighter earlier and it's cooler. But highly recommending that, in July, if you're making the excuse like, oh, it's too hot. No.
Yep.
You find the ability to go and do that.
Can I ask a semi-related question?
Yeah.
You mentioned running in those 100-degree days, and I know several people, and of course, where I live, there's a lot of road work, and I know the regular runners.
Yes.
Is there it's too strong a word, but is there an addictive aspect to running?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It struck me why
the runner's
out
high.
Here. It's crazy.
You get the runner's high, and people get into this thing of like, if you don't do your run for the day, you feel incomplete.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, there's
that's the only explanation for what I saw.
Well, no, I mean,
yeah. No, if you're a sane human being, you're not out running in that heat.
Well, I would imagine the likelihood is that if you saw someone running midday or whatever, they enjoy it, and or in combination with that, they have to get it in, and that would be the only time. I mean, some people do choose to do that. Like I was one of those crazy people that I would just go out. It wouldn't affect me, so I would just go out no matter what. And I wouldn't, it wasn't about the runner's high. It was just be like, oh, this is the time I'm going out. And people are like, you're crazy, you're going to go do that. And I'd be like, yeah, it's great. I have alternatives to that now, as like, you can go to the gym and stay in the cool if you want to do it in the middle of the day, or go swimming. Swimming is a great exercise.
Or even do a shady run. Or even that.
If you can
just get out of the direct sun.
Well, if you can find it.
It's around. I mean,
where is it around you? I can't imagine where there's
just before you get on the turnpike. Just go into those neighborhoods.
Oh yeah. But if you live where you live, there's no way unless you run over the bridge and leave the island.
Yeah.
Like you can't. You're in full direct sunlight all over.
Sunlight all over the place.
I'm like, go for a run on the beach.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, obviously, for the physical activity, because it's a natural mood booster, but also makes sense that, it does good things for your sweating. It gives your body a chance to release, endorphins. You get out there, and even if you're out there and you're swimming, like if you go to the lake, if you go to the beach, if you go to a pool, swimming isn't, by the way, floating, which I love doing. I love floating, but make sure you get a little exercise, 5-10 minutes, even if it's that, so you're getting the whole experience of that piece of what the summer has to offer. Right. Interesting thing, which I did know, but I was reading more, because I always try to read about these things before I talk about them. But we reduce our work hours. Talk about me work. I don't, but but other people reduce their work hours in the summer because they do. And it's by nature that most people take their vacation times during the summer. I'm looking at time. We're good. they reduce their vacation times during the summer months to cut back on working overtime. They don't work on the weekends as much. People will take Fridays off. I know people like today, this week, are taking off today, tomorrow. Like they're doing a long period of time. Much needed rest, because people enjoy this type of, it's like in the winter, it's an explanation of like, well, I don't have anything else to do, anywhere else to be. So I'm going to stay late. It's cold out. It's snowing. It's terrible. So I'm going to stay, but the summer is the benefit of having your mental health taken care of in that way, because it allows you to be able to do those things. And if you do it, great. And people keep asking me, what do you do? Because I'm always vacation mode, like in the summer, like, I take like one a month. I haven't had any. And so people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I haven't done anything, as you know why.
People like to travel,
and
so they take time for that too.
Well, and people like to travel, and summertime months for a lot of places are really great to travel. I mean, I was going to travel this summer. I'm not anymore, because the place I was going to go to isn't safe.
Yeah. Okay.
So
all kinds of fun.
Well, I would like not to get bombed. So that would be important. That would be an important aspect. I'd like to actually make it back home or make it back into the country. So there's that. So there goes that trip yet again.
So you're going to LA?
No.
Okay.
That was pretty funny though. That was really good, Lou.
Yeah.
That was really good. So summertime stressors. People are always like, oh, summertime, it's great. Well, here's the thing though, is summertime has stress because it does disrupt people's schedules, their routine, their habits, because now there's vacation and children are out of school.
Yep.
And now people that are working have to come up with like camps and things for people to do, and then they have to plan their trips and vacation times and like daycare. So it does have a stressor to it. Also, your change. I've talked about this at the beginning when we were coming into summer, but the change in your sleeping and eating habits. And I warn people and caution people, don't change your sleep habits because it's lighter, later, longer. Still do your thing, or else you're going to be. So that's one of the reasons why you go into seasonal affective disorder. One of the many reasons in the fall is because you're trying to ramp back down to meet the need of like the 4 o'clock sunlight going down. And then you're used to it being up still at 9:30 at night and it's still light out. Like last night it was 9 something and it wouldn't, it was thunder and lightning, but it was still light out, and then of course your eating habits. People tend to eat. It's, in the heat, people eat less. Hi, Rocky. People tend to eat less during certain times of the day, and then they eat more so your whole shift in those two patterns changes.
And the type of food changes. And
the type of food changes. And that's also can be a stressor on you. And then I think, well, I've heard this a lot recently. Dog. The limited time that people have in terms of their finances. There's been such a crunch on some of the financials as of late that people are struggling being able to go on like bigger, fancier vacations. However, the FAA did report that they had something like the most people flying on this past Monday that they've had in like 10 years or something. Yeah. So, and they're expecting more. So, but I also know that my client base is saying a lot about like their finances are limited due to other things and expenditures. And I know that tends to be a huge financial burden on people for the summer when they say, oh, all these people are going on these vacations, but we have staycations and, that kind of thing. I always tell people, just go to the little lakes or the little beaches around, or, do things that are local and go, if you like gardens, go walk through one of the gardens in Boston or, but there's always things to do. I think people get really stuck in the traditional, like you got to go to the beach and you got to have a beach house and you got to like hang out and all that stuff. But there's so many other options that you can generate, which I could go through, but for time's sake. Then sometimes in the summer, health reasons become a stressor because some people have a hard time in the summer because of breathing or cardiovascular issues in the heat. And so that can isolate. So much like winter can isolate people, summer can also isolate people from being out and about because they can't go out in that because of an oxygen issue or a cardiovascular issue, or sometimes, it could be a skin related condition. A lot of people have, cancer conditions or in terms of skin and don't want to be out in the sun. I always tell people, obviously sunblock, wear a hat, don't do what I do, which is I do sunblock, but I don't wear a hat.
And people just generally have different heat tolerances. Some
exactly.
people just can't be outside.
Exactly.
In the day.
Right. And especially in those hot, 10 to 2, or I always say 10 to 3 because it's really 10 to 3. And then also people have anxiety and they tend to avoid participating in outdoor activities because of their physical appearance. This is the time right now where people that started in May that they want to lose 50 pounds they've only lost 5, and then they gain 10.
Yep.
And so they're freaking out about the fact that they can't do the things that they had planned that they want to do. So they're in the give up mode at this point. And now this is when the full throttle of summer has started, and they're not going and doing the things that they said they wanted to do and have fun because they feel bad about themselves.
Yep.
I just tell my clients, hey, we adjust to that. Like we buy an outfit that makes you look good the way you feel like you would look. You don't need to wear, if you're overweight and you don't want to wear a bathing suit, well, we find alternatives so we can still go do the thing. I have people that love the beach and won't go to the beach because they feel bad about themselves and their body, so they miss out on the beach. And so I say, okay, if you feel that bad and you don't want to be seen in that, so why don't we go at 4:00 in the afternoon so you can wear your shorts and your tank top and you can walk the beach and you can sit and they're like, oh, I didn't think of that. Because in their mind, it's you go from 9:00 in the morning, you stay all day, and you're supposed to be in a bikini, or you're supposed to be in, a Speedo. It's like, well, please don't. But you're out there doing that. Those are some of the stressors that come along with the summer. And so just being mindful of those. There's always alternatives to the stressors that come with the summer. So obviously that's a whole nother show that we can talk about. But in the summer of
back to your boundary about caring what other people think.
Yes. Right. And well, that's why I say we'll find an alternative so that it gets less stigmatized, so you feel okay at 4:00 and see that you're not the only person out there that might feel that way. So people have to go and expose themselves to be like, oh, it's not just me that feels this way.
Yep.
Oh, look at Rocky. He's like right under my feet.
Oh.
So I know we're running short on time today because I started late and you have a lovely show behind me. So I wanted to make sure that I'm going to come back to this because we have a whole lovely 5 weeks in July to do this. But it is the 4th of July this weekend. So it's supposed to be hot everywhere in the country. And so, obviously hydration is important, and making sure that you eat foods. If you're not a big water drinker, eat foods that have a lot of water content. So lots of watermelon, cucumbers, salads, things like that. Not heavy things, because that will increase your risk of not feeling so hot in the hot weather. But at the end of the day, at the close of the show, as I'm getting ready to do here, I will just wrap it back around to the fact that it's important for everyone to reclaim your energy by staying around good, positive things and keeping that grounded in sovereignty of authenticity to yourself. How's that? Excellent. So I know that was like a really short, condensed rush of a show today, but I appreciate you all. I want you all to have a safe 4th of July weekend, and I will be back here to talk more about the July of You.